Myron, great to have you on the program. Welcome to BYU Sports Nation.
Thank you all for having me. I appreciate it.
We enjoyed the article on ESPN.com. What are some of the top takeaways you learned from your visit to get to know the BYU basketball program?
First, the air is kind of thin up there, right? So that took a little bit to adjust to. I'm like, why am I winded just walking to my room? But no, it was a really great experience just overall. Like my whole theory was once AJ signed at BYU, I immediately called and said, hey, I want to see Provo. I'd never been there. I'd never been to Utah beyond Salt Lake City's airport. So for me, it was like, let's spend some time there and see what this campus is all about. So it was just a cool experience, interacting with fans and coaches and players and boosters and administrators. I really had a chance to talk to a wide variety of folks in that community, and that was pretty cool. The pictures, I'm a big hiker and just photographer, and so it's just such a surreal kind of place when you get there and see the mountains as the backdrop. So it was cool, and I'm glad I had a chance to get out there.
So what did you see or feel during your visit here that you did not expect? What surprised you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I guess I didn't go into this with any specific expectations, but I mean, it was a very welcoming thing for me. Everyone's really open, and I guess just how transparent everybody was. Like the thing I think BYU has and sort of this reshifting of collegiate sports is BYU knows who it is. And I think there are a lot of schools that are honestly trying to figure it out in this sort of turbulent time. So, just the idea of really having really transparent conversations about what's next in sports, the value of sports, the faith and what that means to people in that community and on that campus. I got some great cookies. Dallin Hall's mom made some cookies and she was passing them out.
Of course.
And I'm like, is this how you all treat people? They show up and you just give them cookies? So it was just a cool experience overall.
I know you cover basketball, but if you come to football, they hand out to the opposing fan base ice cream during the game. So that's the kind of vitriol that LaBelle Edwards Stadium has.
I love it. I'll take that too.
Myron, BYU's never had a player like AJ Dybantsa ever. It's an amazing signing. What did you learn about how the Cougars got him?
Well, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, I think people think BYU and they think of a certain demographic, a certain kind of athlete who's usually white and a member of the church, right? That's sort of been the history. But also with AJ, guys like that don't sign with anyone but Kansas, Duke, Kentucky, Carolina. So I think had he signed anywhere outside of those quote unquote blue bloods, it would have been a big story. But for BYU to get into the mix with a first-year head coach, I think that to me was just a really unique thing. And I think that made a lot of people go, whoa, what's going on here? Obviously, playing basketball in Utah in high school right now and just being that close to BYU and some of the connections there. But ultimately, I think he just wanted to go to a place where he could develop. And if you talk to Kevin Young, he's running BYU like an NBA team. And I think that really appealed to AJ and kind of what he wanted. And I think Kevin Young's greatest strength is he's not caught up in the what's right, what's wrong in college sports right now. He's just sort of adapted to the reality of this is where we're at. And I think that appealed to a guy like AJ, who is trying to get the most out of that 1 year he'll most likely be in school that he can. And it meant a lot to him that Kevin Young had an NBA background. It meant a lot to him that he could come here and I think focus and just work. And he made BYU not only a destination for him, but I think for others in the future who will see that and go, okay, maybe Kevin Young can do that for me too.
That's one theme I got from your article was this is a program not built for AJ. AJ's coming to it, but the guys that come after AJ will keep BYU competitive in the upper echelons of college basketball. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, I think there's the potential for that. I mean, next year is an important year, not even just how AJ performs, but the experience I think will matter a lot as well. And what I've told people, because a lot of people have asked me offline, like, BYU, what was that?
Mm-hmm.
And I think BYU is actively making an effort to say, I know what people think we are, but this is who we want to become. and to say we want guys like AJ to be a part of this program going forward. And I think if you see the number one pick projected in the 2026 NBA draft, he's saying it's good enough for me, then other players could say the same thing. And I know for a fact that there are some really high-level players reaching out to BYU who are wondering how they can be a part of what could unfold in the years ahead. So this could be a seed for a brighter future for BYU. It's not guaranteed because it's just difficult to succeed in college basketball, period, especially during this time. But having the number one recruit changes perceptions about what BYU has to offer guys of that caliber.
And it's interesting because BYU's been in the mix for number one recruits before. Chris Burgess in the early 90s, a member of the church. Jabari Parker, member of the church as well. There was a Frank Jackson local kid who ends up going. Duke really took it to BYU there for a while. But it feels like in this era where things are just a little different, obviously NIL opens things up, but the fact that BYU has an NBA staff, an NBA situation, do you feel like this is the beginning of more guys, like you mentioned, coming to Provo? The Yegor Dem and Kenan Catchings were the first wave. AJ Dybantsa, Xavier State, and 2 top 35 guys. What's in the future for the Cougars, given what you learned when you were in Provo?
Well, I think they're just in a really favorable position, right? Clearly, you have the boosters in sync with what BYU wants to do with its athletics program. And I assure you that's not the case everywhere. There are a lot of schools where the school, the coaching staff, the leadership in athletics, and the supporters are not all on the same page about where to put their money. But it's clear that BYU is in sync with its supporters, its coaching staff, and I think that helps a lot. For AJ to come here, there are going to be kids who come to Provo and visit Provo who would have never done that. And that can change the caliber of athlete going forward, and it can make BYU that kind of a destination. I mean, you all are familiar with another school that kind of experienced that when you were in the West Coast Conference. Gonzaga was sort of an afterthought 25 years ago in college basketball. They went on a run, their profile changed, and now they routinely bring in high-level players. I think that can happen with BYU with a guy like AJ signing, because remember, AJ is the big headline right now, and he should be. But once that portal opens up, there are going to be some elite players who are going to do everything they can to get to BYU and be a part of that. There are already international players who want to be a part of that. So in year one, you're going to see that difference. Then it becomes how you sustain that. But bringing in a guy like AJ opens the door and makes other, I think, Black, non-Mormon, guys from different walks of life who may not have previously considered BYU, then all of a sudden they go, you know what? Let me take a look at what Kevin Young has going on down there.
Myron, fans love to live in the moment. And in the moment out here, BYU's coming off a loss to Arizona in front of a packed Marriott Center. Your vibe as you spent time with the team and kind of looking around here, is this a team that can get to the NCAA tournament this year and do some things, not have to wait till next year and beyond? What's your take?
It's possible. You know, the challenge is the Big 12 is so good that there will always be good teams that don't look as good as they are. I mean, that's just the competition. Like, you already had to, in the previous version of the Big 12, go through Kansas and Baylor and all of these elite teams. Now you bring in Houston. Now you bring in Arizona. So it just gets more and more difficult to find wins, I think, in a league like this. You also have a first-year head coach who, as I think great as Kevin Young has been thus far in the recruiting component and building his team, building a system and a culture, which takes time, he's also a first-year head coach, you know, and I think there will always be growing pains like that. And he's also a first-year head coach in the Big 12. Most coaches don't start in a league like this, where it's just hard to get wins against anyone. So is it possible to kind of get into the field and make that run and to finish strong? Yes. The best part about BYU's situation is when you're in the Big 12, there's no shortage of quality win opportunities going forward in February and in early March. And you would much rather be in that position than to be in a league where maybe you're winning all the time, but it's not really doing a whole lot for your resume. But I think the Big 12 is punishing for some really good teams that don't look as good as they are because the league is that strong.
That's why you hope the net helps you out, and it really did last year for BYU. Myron, we appreciate the time, great insight into what you learned from Provo. We recommend everyone go read your article and articles on ESPN.com. Thanks for the time, man.
Thank you.